Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody. Two questions that I got asked this morning in Hong Kong, and interesting. This led on to this conversation, short conversation with, or long conversation with Joanne. And I'll ask you the same questions. We'll aim to answer them. I'll ask you to answer them at the end of the session. The first is, in the senior squad, do we have? Don't answer now. Do we have a flexibility protocol? Right. So the root of it is obviously as we get older, and I'm is anybody here under 25? If you're under 25, you should be in the squad. But when you get to 25, and it doesn't really notice then, but after 25 and certainly into your 40s, then what we group skills-based fitness. What I mean by it is speed, power, agility, reaction time, balance, coordination, those sort of things. Unless we work on those specifically and it's relevant to us, they tend to degrade. And you might find, I might be, my endurance is not as great as it was when I was in my 20s, and my flexibility is. So I have to work a bit harder at it. So, like I say, it degrades, and obviously that's why a 70-year-old is less flexible than the average 20-year-old. That's just physiology and the aging process. So the question is, do we have, or do you think we have, nice cat, a flexibility protocol, right? So we have to give it a name. And the second is, what is the point of strength and conditioning training? Why don't we just do it in the boat? Now, this was a bizarre question. It was a great question and bizarre. It was a bizarre question because in Hong Kong, they're not paddling in boats at the moment. So it's a little bit rhetorical, but there's a wider question there. What's the point of just doing strength and conditioning? Why do it? Why not just go in the boat and do it there? So hold that thought. And there's a couple of things we need to cover today. But the main part is obviously you're on the water. So you're slightly ahead of the game, and that's fantastic. And long may that remain so. Hong Kong should come online after the Chinese New Year this weekend. They're starting, if you know, Deepwater Bay and the VRC in Hong Kong, Victoria Club, they're starting to go out in OC6s, V6s. So, and because a lot of the dragon boating in Hong Kong is run by Chinese groups, some people say triads. I'm not sure that's right or not, but it's certainly run by local groups. There's a lot of money involved in it. And if you go to Stanley on the south of Hong Kong Island, there's a big rack and there's something like 30 or 40 dragon boats stacked up on racks. So there's lots of money involved in it. So they'd be quite keen to, that sort of drives the participant activities. A lot of the clubs think, well, actually a lot of our revenue, forget dragon boat clubs or BNTS, is driven by getting people through the corporate side of things. So that's driving that. So I can see in a very short space of time, you'll be cracking on, Hong Kong will be cracking on, and the UK will be way behind. But as I keep saying, the UK is just the place where the British Dragon Boat Association live, right? It's not about that. It's about where British paddlers live. So I'll just reinforce that if I need to. So what was I talking about? Paddling. Hong Kong. Yeah.
No.
We might have forgotten. I totally forgot. Lost my thread. Flexibility. So flexibility protocol, right? And Hong Kong and getting on the water, and the point about they weren't paddling there at the moment. So because you're ahead of the game, I'm back on track now. We're starting doing videoing. Now, just a quick show of hands, who regularly, routinely, or ever has done video debriefing and video coaching in their dragon boat cruise? One.
Done it. Yeah, we've done it before.
I mean, surprisingly, you'd think. So maybe half yes, no, a little bit. It's actually quite a thorny subject. And you have to, from a coaching perspective, you have to introduce it correctly. And we're going to do it with you. Because it's a bit like, I mean, ladies in the main, and you can't generalize, but I'll sort of generalize here. Ladies in the main are more likely, more receptive to constructive criticism. As you can imagine, blokes in the main, a little bit, it's a bit like somebody saying, James, you're a crap driver, my friend. You know, you're going to sort of bristle a little bit. And you've been paddling for 10 years or whatever, and suddenly this bloke from the UK says, actually, can you try that? And can you try this? So we as a group, this is a BNTS group, have got to get over what we're doing it for. And what we're doing it for is to make our boats run more efficiently, more effectively, and run faster. Yep. And we are individuals flying in close formation in a dragon boat. And we always say at the start of COVID, well, I started saying this, I started saying it again and again. You know, the blessing of dragon boat is we're all in the same boat, working together in the same way inside people's personal space, let alone intimate, or let alone intimate space, let alone intimate personal space. And it's also the curse of dragon boating, because obviously it prevents us from doing what we want to do. But because we're in such close proximity, then we've got to be working in real close formation. So if I'm sitting next to Joanne and my inside arm is flying out the way and she can't paddle properly. So this is where the individual technique and abilities blend into the whole thing. So it's not just a case of say Paul's a fantastic paddler, and I'm sure he is, but he decided that actually, to be quite honest with you, I'll tell you what, you do a couple of months training, and when I'm good and ready, I'll come and join you. Yeah, you know, when I think you're good enough, I'll come and join you. I know already that Paul is not that sort of bloke. But we get that situation. But the issue is, what we're trying to do is get people together and blend them, because if I don't know, Abby works good with Catherine as a pair, and then Tom's good with James, then we've got to work that out and work out where they're going to be. So when it comes to trimming a dragon boat, and obviously you know what I mean by that. So you'd like to run your dragon boat, it depends on the conditions, straight and level, maybe slightly nose down, probably not nose up, but you see what I mean. If we have pairs in the boat, and I've done this before, when I run with what I tend to do, but it doesn't have to be this, I have 3 stroke seats, 1, 2, 3, and 7. So I have a stroke group, and number 7 is the enforcer reinforcer, because you all know down the front of the boat, fantastic, and then sometimes, because there's a bit of a time delay and it's 20 meters away or whatever it's going to be, it tends to sort of spill down to that a little bit at the back, and sometimes you have this catch-up situation. So number 7 is also a stroke seat, if you see what I mean. So they're reinforcing that message all the way. Just something I found that's worked in the past and we could implement. But what that gives me is 4 sets of stroke paddlers. So if I want to change the trim of the boat, then more often than not, you can do that just by taking a plug out here and putting them there. And it's the same with different parts of the boat. I mean, another question, and by the way, if you want to ask any question or you think I'm talking nonsense, come off mute and say, don't know what you're talking about.
And can I just ask before you move on, when you say seats, you said 1, 2, 4, and 7.
1, 2, 3, and 7.
Did you mean 1, 2, 3? Was that seats 1, 2, so bench 1, the person on bench 2, and then a person on bench 7?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, you're going by person, not by bench.
Yes, yes. Well, okay.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, and 7, and it also gives you some in the competition, some resilience, because those of you who paddle stroke seats, even though there's the whole team behind you and maybe Michelle in front of you, it gets quite lonely. And especially if you paddle outrigger, you know, you do a long race in an outrigger, and you're up and down in the water, out the water, even though you know the crew's behind you. Yeah, there's a psychological issue there as well. So, and all stroke seats.
So your 7 is in the engine room. She or he is right in the middle of the engine room.
You are brilliant. You've read my script.
Sorry, I'm writing it down. Yeah, I just wanted to understand. Thank you.
You've come straight on to the point I want to talk about. That's absolutely brilliant. I'm going to disagree with you, not violently in a minute, but I'll tell you why in a minute. So 1, 2, 3, and 7, and it also means that in a race you can change that configuration, give your bench 1 people a rest and that sort of thing, because you know people do need. You need to swap people around, you know, a long competition. So, Heidi May, fantastic. Are you sure you've not read my script? Where's the engine room in a dragon boat?
You guys should know. You all paddle.
The middle.
It's usually the middle of the dragon boat.
Okay. So, who hands up for thinking it's? Oh, you may be right. You may be right. But who thinks the engine room? So where you produce the power, is that the engine? How do you let's define engine room first. So what is the engine room?
Well, actually, you're saying about the power, it's usually the bigger guy or the bigger people rather than the power, because power is relative.
Well, all right, okay. So I'm just want to unpick this a little bit in a fun sort of way. So when you talk about engine room, you tend to sort of indicate or intimate maybe that's where a majority, a significant amount of the power is being generated. Okay, okay. So who thinks that's right? So let's call it the center of gravity. Who thinks the center of gravity or the middle of the boat is the engine room?
I think the whole boat's the engine, personally. I mean, I think, you know, the pacers have a bigger role to play in generating power, and certainly, you know, the jets, the rockets, or whatever you want to call them at the back, you know, particularly with the speed of water, have got to be particularly strong to make sure they catch the water and generate enough force.
Right.
So I would say the whole boat's an engine.
So you've changed your mind. That's good. I like that. I like to be flexible.
I agree.
No, hang on, Michelle. Hang on a minute, because you know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm going to say. Who thinks what's the rockets? What's that all about? I mean, I thought, and this is a little bit messing about. Do we not put all the rubbish paddlers down the back? Is that not what we do?
Absolutely not. That's one
Correct.
of the
Okay.
It's one of the
So we're on the
hardest
same.
positions, yeah.
Right. So we're on the same page here. But why do we call them rockets? That's a good term.
The
Okay,
water-
fine.
So they've got to even be more rapid in their stroke to catch the water.
Ah, right. Okay. Now, it is a fact, absolute fact, that because the strokes, who not always, I mean, who sometimes like to think that they're the best paddlers, technically, the stroke seat, I'm having stroked at GB level myself, actually is probably the easiest seat to paddle. Because if you think about it, if you've got a fast boat, you're paddling a rising wave. So you've got the best, we'll put it this way, maybe not the easiest, you've got the best chance of getting the best catch in the stroke seat without any shadow of a doubt. And the faster the boat, you've got a big wave. Hopefully you've got a big bow wave that's coming up to seat 3. That's what we're planning. So you've got a nice, big, smooth wave. Everybody else behind that, they're not playing catch up, but they have the potential of paddling what the Canadians call dirty water, we might call rough water, yeah? And if you've got somebody who's, say I'm a particularly messy paddler and I'm ripping out the back, I might have a nice warm feeling in seat number 3, and there's Paul 3 seats behind me who's trying to make a catch, and he's just hitting a big bubble of air, which I've just created by ripping out the back. So what we certainly do is, if you look at an aerial photograph of any GB team I've been involved in the later stages in the competition, it's as smooth as it can be, because we spend a lot of time on, you know, the Chinese. If you've got Chinese, I remember seeing, we came 3rd in this race, I've got to say, China, Canada and us. And interestingly, China, really messy, but really fast, they won. Canada, they're not concerned about what they call dirty water. They were a more athletic crew than us, and they still beat us. But because we're more into the British economy of effort, efficiency side of things, I think there's a lot of gains to be had by keeping our strokes as clean as possible. It means that if Abby is a few seats behind me, then even if my stroke is a bit messy or not, she still get the best chance to get a good catch. Right, so that's that. Let me just rewind a little bit. So back to where the engine room is. So the back seats further back need to be, whether you call them rockets or sticks of celery, frankly, they have to be technically good paddlers. They need to be technically proficient. They need to be observant, and they need to be on the pace. And the further back you are, as you know, with the old flash to bang, that's harder. So they certainly are technicians. So backseat paddlers do need to be, you know, technically some of your better paddlers, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so let's get back to the original question. So who thinks the engine room's at the back? Okay, so the engine room might be in the middle. Who thinks the engine room's in front? Michelle, what do you think?
It's everywhere on the boat. It's every seat on the boat.
Correct. Because if you're not pushing your weight and more, what are you doing there? So in my view of the world, the engine room starts at the dragon's nose and finishes at the dragon's tail. Because we cannot afford and won't have anybody in the race crew boat or the British dragon boat team who's not pulling their weight and more. So the engine room is everywhere. Except the way you're delivering that power, how effective it is slightly different. And actually in the middle, it's relatively easy as well, because the average dragger boat has a curved gunnel. And there is a tendency to people to paddle down the gunnel rather than paddle relative to the center line of the boat. So we have all sorts of different challenges. Yeah. So that's just, I thought I'd just raise that as a question. And if you disagree, tell me. But every paddler counts. Every paddle stroke of every paddler counts every step of the way. Right.
And the steers and the drummer.
Okay. If they are, okay. So what's the, okay. Brilliant. Let's just do this as well. What's the point of, and I call it drummer stroke cox. That's probably the answer really. But Michelle, what's the point of a drummer?
Well, the first point of the drummer is to keep the boat safe. That's the primary concern of the drummer. That's right. That's my main concern. And the boat, I mean, obviously the people on the boat first, and then the physical boat. But my job is to basically try and get the paddlers to get across that line as quickly as they possibly can. And so I'm not physically propelling the boat, but I am verbally propelling the boat. And it can be, you know, encouragement, it can be correcting technique like heads down, it can be strategy. During the race, you can have a different strategy in the 2K as you will have in the 200 meters. It's basically trying to get the best out of the paddlers by whatever means that means.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you are one of the best I've ever seen at this. You've probably seen when you're younger that trick with a clown where a clown is pulling flags out of his or her mouth. Yeah. Now imagine somebody reaches right down into the pit of your stomach and pulls out your top performance. That to me is what the drummer stroke cox does. And they do it by, I mean, verbally, but really you're creating a situation where, you know, you are right in the eye line of the paddlers, and that is their sole point. In case they're paddling, their sole point of focus, so that you have their attention. So absolutely every word spoken, shouted, occasionally sworn, whatever means, and if it means it's going to propel the boat, going to get that every ounce of energy, effort, enthusiasm, anything. I told this story, and I probably told you previously. World 500 final, Kunming. Michelle's on the front, and given that Michelle works in fine arts and that sort of stuff, and I can't imagine that she would particularly speak like this at work. But I've never known anybody, and I'm sure Michelle won't mind me telling you, swear so much in a 500 meters that I was actually, having spent 30 years in the police and 14 of those in the parachute regiment reserves, I was shocked by the amount of swearing. But the point of what it did, it really fired us up. And that's the point, isn't it? That's the point. It's all very well saying you've got to have the skill and the will. If you've got somebody there encouraging you, it makes so much difference. And one other story about drummer coxes. Before my son was a steerer, he was, you know, when he was 13, 14, he was a GB drummer. And he only went to Szeged in 2013, I think, because he was my son. He didn't actually go, and he went as the second drummer, and he came back as the premier, the absolute, because for me and for others, all the ladies in the crew wanted to mother him, and they wanted to work hard for him, yeah, whatever age. And for me, everything that meant everything to me at that time in my life was sitting on the front of the boat. So all I had to do was dig down deep, find something that really motivated me. And my job was to propel Henry down the race course as fast as possible. We talk about visualization. Yeah, and we'll talk about that later on in the campaign. But for me, I didn't have to visualize anything. It was just sitting there. So you see what I mean? That relationship that we build up is really, really important. So I would say, you know, whatever, I mean, you go for a lightweight paddler, sorry, a lightweight drummer, certainly, for obvious reasons, but they are absolutely worth their weight, absolutely. And if you just do not want somebody just sitting there, just going through the motions, because that's just, you know, I always say to people when I coach people in it, a non-vocal drummer is just weight. a great drummer is worth their weight. Simple as that. So within the engine room, as confines, nose to tail. So Nikki, so same question to you. What is the point of a steerer?
To make sure that the boat is safe as well, and that you steer it across that line, number one. Obviously, to keep it straight as well.
But actually, how it's interesting, isn't it? Because we train basic steerers, and we train them, you know, sort of elevating and twisting and all the various strokes and various stuff you can do with the sweep or steering oar. And then, unless you're talking about turning a corner, we then teach our steerers to do as little steering as possible.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? So the best steerers you'll see won't be going down the race course riding the sweep oar, because all that's doing is slowing you down.
Yeah.
But that subtle dip in here, twist, flick of the wrist, that sort of stuff, the subtle stuff that just comes from practice, understanding, experience, and knowing when to load the paddlers down in terms of doing a big sweep on a turn maybe, and how to take it off and that sort of stuff. But once again, the encouragement from there, you've got to have somebody on the back you trust, because you know from when you first started paddling, you're paddling along, and if you don't trust your steerer, what's the first thing you do? You don't do what they ask. They just don't, and then suddenly you've got doubts in your mind. So it really is important, the psychology between those two, because if you think about it, for that 500 meters, 2 minutes, whatever it's going to be, 4 minutes is 1,000, they've got you. Your steerer and your helm, and really it's in their hands, because you're fit and you know how to win a race. But it's them really, what their job then is to really focus you and pull that performance out. So how much, even if I make it into a race crew, how much coaching do you think I do in a race? None. The job's done, isn't it? If we haven't got it by then, there might be some stuff to do between races every now and again, and we may have certain tactical pieces that you call, but you know we call it bursts or pulses or whatever, but we'll talk about those later on. But certain people do that. We don't have a free for all. Just coming back to Michelle here, because it's a really good subject actually. I'm glad you brought it up. The terminology, the words you use, both to Nikki as a steerer and to Michelle as a drummer cox. The words you use, is it random? Do you sort of think it up on the hoof? Do you sort of make it up as you go along? Or how does it work?
So for me, and this is one of the reasons why I think it's really important for the drummer to train with the crew, is that you need to try out different words. So I know, for example, Stormy Dragons, for the men, you don't say power, because they just go absolutely crazy and then they lose their technique and whatever. So it's basically you have to try things out and see what works, see what motivates people. Some people hate certain words, and certain crews will say, I really don't want you to say that. And you have to take that on board, because you need to be flexible. It's not about what the drummer and the steers want to do. It's about what motivates the crew and what's going to get the best out of the crew. So you need to try things out.
Really, really important. I'll give you a daft example. 2010, 2011, I was in the senior crew, so GB seniors. I am that old. So I was paddling, and they had a scrum down one day. Decided they'd pick the drummer, and it wasn't really a specialist drummer. It was somebody who wasn't fast enough as a paddler, which is not a really good way to pick your drummer. That's the way they did it. And we had a sit down. They said, "Well, we've got to decide the words that the drummer's going to use, right?" And this is sort of along the lines of Michelle was talking about, but a very ad hoc way of doing it. One of the suggestions was, get your finger out. Now, if I was in a race boat, somebody said that to me, or, work harder, or, what are you waiting for, whatever, that sort of stuff, said in the wrong way. I think I'm bloody working hard here. What do you think I'm doing? What do you think I've been doing for the last 6 months? So what you say really is important. It'll be interesting for us, because obviously we're talking about people that potentially live in, even though we're all British or British residents, if you live in the UK, then different words, exactly that, might mean completely a different thing. And what you don't want is somebody like me talking blah, 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 blah for ages. What you want, short, sharp, specific, do it, 2, 1, go. Now, why do we do that? You may or may not do that. Why don't we just say, right, 100% or 85% go? Why do we count people in?
Because you need people to be thinking about it so that they're focused on doing what you want them to do.
When you want it. So if you want them to go, you don't say 2, 1, go. You give them, they want them to go or react or whatever on the G of the go, on the B of the bang. So people working hard, you think about it, you're working hard in a 500 metre race, 200 metre race, you need a bit of process time. So it's a bit like the, Paul, yes.
Sorry, Tim. Sometimes there's also an issue in that when people call 2-1, the power drops on 2-1. So you also need to think about whether those are the right words or whether you have to tune your mind in on your 2-1 needs to be building the power. But it's amazing when sometimes we call 2-1 on the boat, the 2-1 drops the power. So it's getting the right words and the right balance.
Right. Try, I mean, exactly this, but it's actually, I wasn't intending to talk about this, but it's really good actually. So sometimes, as Paul says there, it's as subtle as what the words mean to you. If 2-1 doesn't trigger anything, you might want to say power up, go. You know what I mean? So it's, and that's exactly the point about when you're under pressure, you need something that you can key into and you can react to. And I've been in a crew before where exactly Paul's point, 2-1 go or 3-2-1 didn't go, but power up go did. So it's a bit like if any of you have been in the military or the police or whatever. Catherine,
like
yes.
the command one that works well is leg drive now, and it's like that's the build up. So it's not building like a going 1, 3, 2, 1. It's like the command and then now and then that's the
Command is a good term because if anybody been in the military, the police or whatever, then you have like, I mean, it's a long-winded word. You have like a cautionary word of command. Yeah, if you think about an army, you'd say, right, squad will turn to the left in 3s, left turn. Yeah. So you address the group. You tell them what they're going to do. You give them a cautionary word of command and then an executive word of command. So they do it on the go, on the G of the go, on the executive word. In our case, there's only one executive word in Dragon Boat and it's go. But we tell people what they want them to do, tell them when they're going to do it and tell them to do it. So it's like a military command in one. Hold that thought. I'll just get the door. Excuse me. Right. Could you cogitate that point for 2 seconds while I just move my Land Rover?
Everyone's sneaking off for a glass of wine, are they?
Yeah.
It's just about the time.
I earned this last night and this morning.
I think Heidi May's got a gin and tonic in there.
Whatever. The big one.
How was everybody this morning? How was the bodies?
Oh,
So
How did
Listed.
listed?
it's all
Yeah.
Not a bad effort. 1 hour constant paddling.
No, it was good.
Bet you wouldn't think you'd have done that.
good though.
Yeah.
Good.
It was good.
really good.
Now we
And
just
the
need to hit
photograph you sent
technique.
today, Nikki, was amazing. The
Pardon?
video, the photograph you had when we were paddling towards Atlantis.
Oh
What a
yeah,
shot
That
that
was
is.
had to be done.
That was really good.
Good.
Yeah. Hey ho.
How are you feeling now, Nikki? Are you fully recovered?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm 100%
Great.
getting there.
Did you cogitate? Yes, I'm sure you did. Right. Right. Land Rovers. Right. What was I talking about? Oh yes. Right. So moving on a little bit. Moving on. Videos. So unless you're used to it, video, you can introduce video into coaching, Dragon Boat coaching, water sports coaching, and you can cock it up completely. So you've got to be a bit sensitive to the way you do it. As long as people understand that what we're aiming to do is improve as a group. Now, what I normally do, and I've got some video of you, strange enough, by the way. What we don't do is we say, like, Heidi May, can you tell us what you think about Tom and Nikki? Well, Nikki's a
Sorry.
coach. Joanne, what do you think about Rachel? That's not really the way it works. So what we do is if we send videos out, we ask you to comment on you, yeah? But when you're giving feedback, if you remember, what we want from you is GBH. And what I mean by that is what is good, what can be better, and how, yeah? When we talk about feedback, we always assume you want to hear the negative points, and you all know that so Ali might be a fantastic paddler, and I'm sure she is. And if I just went through a video of Ali and told Abby and told her about 10 great points, you know, great leg position, great this, great that, and I said actually your top hand's a little bit this, that, and the other, what Abby will remember is the negative point, yeah. So it really is important that, you know, you start off when you're giving feedback, and I'll do the same, and I'm sure Nikki will do the same, is we start off with what is good. Now, hopefully there will be something good. So we don't make it up. We don't bullshit people, right? That's really important as well. So, you know, but feedback is positive and negative. If we're going to give somebody, if we're going to say to somebody, your top hand's a bit low, high, whatever, over here, whatever, we've got to tell you what we want you to do about it. So I've had a chat with Nikki yesterday, I think, was it Monday? Yesterday, about this. So how we're going to do it, if you're happy with it, is we'll be giving you individual feedback. The person who gives you the feedback front end will be Nikki, yeah? I'll feed information into Nikki. So you see what I mean? Because otherwise, because we communicate the same thing in different ways, if we're talking to Deborah, for example, I could be saying to Deborah, blah, 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 blah. And Nikki would say blah, blah, blah. And we're talking about the same thing, but we're putting it across in a different way. So front end, you'll get it from Nikki. When I say get it, I mean pleasant as opposed to whatever.
Oh, no, we'll get it.
Oh, we'll get it.
Not from Nikki.
You see what I mean? So that's that chain of command, if you like, or chain of information is important as well. So you know what you're going to get, how you're going to get it. And then we'll talk about various techniques and stuff and technical drills that can assist you. Yeah, that's the way. So it's respectful because it should be as well, but expect to be given information for action. And I've been to major championships before, and I mentioned this, I laughed about this with Nikki the other day, and I was talking to some bloke, and I said, well, you're still doing that? And he said, I know. Right, so you know, right, so what the hell have you been doing for the last year? If you know, why are you still doing it? You see what I mean? So it is in, you know, and it may take you, the younger you are, frankly, the easier it will be to adjust. The older we get, the more entrenched we tend to get, and we tend to get worried about consequences and this, that, and the other. And I had when I first started, my coach was a bloke called Dave Bangs. He's a director coach in the UK. He's 70 years old, knows a lot about paddling, and he was on my case all the time, right? And it really annoyed me. But then I thought, after a while, actually, he's telling me all this stuff because one, he thinks I'm going to listen to him, and I did. I'm interested in learning, and two, I'm going to be a better paddler for it. You know the difference between somebody who's being constructively or critically constructive and somebody who's just taking the pee. Yeah, there's a difference. So yeah, we won't be giving you a hard time all the time, but if we need you to do something, then we're going to tell you, and we're going to give you the, you know, the good, how to improve and how to do it, or the good, what can be better and how to do it. Okay, so that's that. Now we've got some from back end video at the moment, but what we're planning to do is also try and get hold of some sort of motorboat and then get some side on as well, because you can only see a certain amount, and yeah, the same video from different perspectives gives you a different idea. So are you happy with that? Yeah, some of it's a bit uncomfortable because at the end of the day somebody's criticizing you, but if you sort of just dial back a bit and think, well, actually it's about me improving, us improving, and you know, there'll definitely be stuff that you may want to...
Having the video is brilliant because we're paddling along and Nikki will say correct something and you're like, in your own head that's what you're doing, but until you see it you don't realize how bad it is.
Well,
yeah, but so you need to see it to understand.
But bear in mind, and this is not me soft soaping you or blowing smoke where it shouldn't be blown, but the point is, its video will also identify good stuff as well. Now, of course it will, and don't you know, that's really important actually. But the other thing is, what you'll find is Nikki might say to you, right, so I don't know, I'll just pick on Tom because he's sitting there. Right. So Tom's paddling in a certain way, okay? And Nikki will say to him, right, Tom, you need to sort of straighten out your arm, you need to do this, you need to do that, look in the right direction, look where you're going, future water, don't look down there, because if you look down, your head's down, and you're going to lose your catch. You're going to kill the catch straight away, whatever it's going to be. So Tom will say, yeah, I got it, okay, and he'll do it. And he'll do it for probably 20 strokes, and then he, unless he's really exceptional, he might be, he'll default. So we need constant reminders. So the way we do it is, once it becomes more familiar, then it's a system of basically critical friends. We'll start working you as a seat pair. So hypothetically speaking, because you're sitting next to each other now, in my view anyway. So Catherine and Abby are a seat pair, okay? So say Catherine has 10 points that need to be improved upon. We'll probably give you 3 or 4 points. We'll give you a manageable chunk of, and let's call them action points, because they're not just nice to know, they're points for action, yeah? Points we need to rectify, blend, or whatever. So you'll have 3 or 4 points to work with, yeah? You'll know what they are, Nikki will know what they are, and probably Abby will get to know what they are as well. So it's not just Nikki on your case, which you might be, talking to you all the time, you'll also be working together. So the idea is you're a blended seat pair, and you're all about working together and just knowing what each other is working on as well. So it's a friendly reminder when you're working hard, get your head up, get your arm out, stretch out a little bit, do this, do that, don't grip too hard, push with the leg, whatever it's going to be. You'll get to know what your seat partner is. So you can't get away from it. You've got Nikki telling you to do it on the back, you've got Michelle on the front, and you've got your seat partner as well. And you're going to have to improve. It's the line of least resistance. That's the way it works. So you see what I mean? But it's really important that it's done in a supportive way. Because if it's not, what will happen is, if Heidi May's sitting next to me and she's on my case all the time, I'm just going to get peed off. And I'm probably, as a daft bloke, I'm probably going to do the complete opposite. You see what I mean? So really, is that sort of, it sounds like it's all airy-fairy, sit on beanbags. No, it's not. It's getting a national squad boat and improve it. That's what it is. But you've got to work as part of the crew to do it. So that's where we're going with it. Does anybody think that's a rubbish idea? If you do, say so.
Can I ask a question?
No. Yeah, of course you can.
No, it's a brilliant idea. So knowing that we are all one team as Team GB, but obviously we've got different pods, Dubai, Hong Kong. So it obviously makes sense to try and create units within the team. So are you looking to try and do that in terms of getting a bench partner? So if you were, if you had a good group here, but you had to blend it with somewhere else, that it works easier? Is that your plan?
My plan, my aspiration, we'd have that as an option. If we could get a crew out of the UK, a crew out of Dubai, and a crew out of Hong Kong, fantastic. But in reality, I mean, even looking at the people there today, then we've got more ladies than blokes, for example. Yeah. So yes, and it makes sense to blend people locally, because obviously you get more chance to train together. But if we're trying to sing on the same song sheet, and it has worked in the past, it worked very well in 2017. Then if we're all doing the same thing, albeit in different locations, then it should be a matter of taking a seat pair or a plug, maybe 4, out of there, stick it in there. But my people say a wise person creates more options than they'll ever need. So that would be my plan. Now the reality might be different, but you have to plan there. You might achieve there. So I want to have as many options as I can. It creates a massive coaching headache, but that's okay. That's fine. I don't mind.
No, I think it's a good plan. I think at the end of the day, when you're paddling, that, I mean, for one, getting the right bench partner for you and vice versa makes a massive difference.
Oh yeah.
And if you get the wrong bench partner, it just doesn't work. So I think that that for me makes absolute sense. And then getting pods in the boat that then become units, it just makes sense. It's what you should do as a team anyway, but it just makes sense if it's all global view.
I mean, a bad way to do it is the way I did it in the Worlds in 2011. I was in a mixed GB mixed boat, and the bloke next to me is a mate of mine, was in the same club, but he was coming right across on my side. And I thought, because I knew him, I thought if I say something to him, he's going to get offended and blah and all that. It was like, all this nonsense stuff. So in the end, what I just did was I just bashed him out of the way. He got the message. But that's not really the way. I mean, you learn from experience and you learn from your mistakes. That was the solution right there in Tampa in 2011 at the Worlds, yeah. But you know, if you start there, that's the worst case scenario. Then you work back from there and you work out that blend earlier on. But you clearly don't want somebody coming right across the seat. It was almost paddling my side. I mean, that's how bad it was. But that's the way it is. But that would be the aspiration. Okay, so I just need a volunteer.
What?
Bob.
Do what?
This was
I
like
get blamed for most
Well,
things.
no,
I do the same job.
this is like David Blaine. Did you know I was looking at you? You probably didn't. I was really, no, not really. I'm lying. Right. So who'd you paddle, Tom? What's your name? Where'd you come from? Who'd you paddle for?
Diggers, Dubai Diggers.
Dubai Diggers, right?
Yeah.
Tell me how Dubai Diggers paddle. Aiming to just an example. An example. What are you aiming to do when you're in Dubai Diggers? What are you aiming to do? Obviously, move the boat forward. Yeah. But how do you do it? What's the principles, the fundamentals of your stroke? And I could have asked anybody. I just had to ask.
I
Tom.
think the fundamentals of our strength, because we're quite, I would say in general, a big, strong crew. So the fundamentals are about a long, slow stroke so that we can get our power in. The others would probably tell you more. It's the only crew I've ever paddled with, really. So I'd say that's
okay.
Pretty much.
Because what's important is it doesn't matter how much stuff me, Nikki, Lee in Hong Kong, whatever say. It's how it plays. So it's all about longer, stronger, slower stroke rate, deliver the power, maximize the power through the power phase of the stroke, blade in the water. Yeah, okay. So how do you do that? So what happens at the front end? What happens at the catch? What happens in the middle? Maybe that power point we're talking about at the back end of the stroke. How fast through the air? Is it 2 in the water, 1 in the air? Is it 10 in the water, 1 in the? How do you do it? What's the Diggers' methodology, if you like?
We don't. It's not so much counting, but we try and go long and slow. And what we try and promote is pausing at the front, so then we all hit together.
Right.
Other than that, I wouldn't really know how to answer that question.
Okay. What about the angle? So blade angle on the front. Now we all know just that light touch on physics. When the blade is perpendicular in the water and running parallel to the center line of the boat's going that direction, then you're going to deliver most power there. And we talked about the different angles and what's going on. So what's the Diggers' thinking on where that paddle comes in the water?
We should be hitting at 45 degrees. We all know we should. I think as a team, we're very guilty that we don't because we rely too much on the power and the physicality. But
right, let's work that back then. So what's good about the Diggers' stroke?
We do have a lot of time in the water to get the power down.
Right, and you mentioned to me you're a predominantly male stroke, male team, is that right?
It's all male, yes.
Yeah. All male. Yeah. Right, so if you're coming up against other crews, then you're going to have I'm generalising, but in the main, not having seen the crews, I would imagine you've probably got a physical strength advantage.
Yeah.
Right. So do you? And I don't know this. This is just a little coaching thing, really. Do you, as a Diggers crew, rely more on your physical strength advantage than your technique?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So does that mean?
However, if I could jump in again, I would say another thing, because we're possibly a slower stroke and stronger, I think we're cleaner than other crews. So when I've watched a couple of finals recently, there's a hell of a lot of splashing going on and very little coming from our boat. Whether that's indicative that we're a bit slower, I don't know. But I would say that's maybe because we're technically okay. There's hardly any splashing, we're clean.
Okay, I mean, could well be. I mean, there's a number of reasons why somebody might splash, and but if you're coming at the same time, so it sounds to me like the timing is good. I don't know. I've not seen the diggers paddle lately. I've seen a video from years ago, but that was some time ago. So it sounds to me, off the bat, from what you're saying, it's a big, powerful crew. There's a lot of physicality as an advantage. It sounds like you're pretty much in time and in phase, and there's a difference there. I mean, in time is in time, but you could be hitting the water at the same time at different angles. So the timing and the phasing sounds good. It sounds like your stroke at the back end is pretty snappy out the water, because that's another reason why you could create a lot of churn. Okay. So that's the good points. So what can be better?
We definitely invert too much as a crew, because recently when we've been running 2 or 3, we'll invert the paddle too much.
Oh, I never heard that. Invert. So go negative.
Yes, go negative. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're at your catch point. I know you said, you sort of indicated to me that you're aiming to get in at 45 degrees, and you sort of leaked out a little bit there, only because I'm a former detective, that may not always be the case.
No.
Well, I would say that I don't think we'd try and get in at 45 degrees. I would say 60 degrees. If I'm...
Yeah, you're right. I mean, actually, we did it yesterday or the day before, and our coach was showing us at more of a 60 degree than a 45.
Just for my own understanding, when you say 60, you talked about inverted the paddle. You mean 60 degrees that way or 60 degrees that way?
No, positive.
Okay.
Positive.
Right, positive. So you're aiming for 60-degree positivity, or something along those lines. But what do you actually achieve?
Well, you've got like this is the problem. You've got different people. Back to, I think timing is generally good, but we do have, I can't remember what you called it, but you have different people going at different angles. Yeah. So you've got, if you think about it, so timing would be you're making some form of catch at the same time. But say, for example, I'm paddling behind Paul, and I'm doing 60 strokes a minute, and Paul is hanging on the back end a little bit, so he's coming forward. So we're not, instead of doing that, we're hitting the catch at the same time. But when you look at it, and if you did a freeze frame, you'd have maybe my paddle doing that, Paul's doing that, and that's indicative of a phasing issue. That may or may not be bad, but it just tends to disrupt the crew. So it doesn't look too good. But you think, well, if I'm hitting the catch at the same time, because if you're coming in at different angles, if you're aiming to lift the boat on the front end and you're coming at different angles, it's not going to happen. So timing and phasing tend to work together, or should do. So it's interesting that you've got 3 people there talking about the same thing, and it's an example. So don't take anything more than this. So I would say, and am I right in saying that on that particular crew, and whatever crew it is, you're not entirely certain about what you need to be doing. You know the theory of it, whether it's 60 degrees, 45 degrees, or whatever, or loading the power, whatever you're doing, but you're not entirely sure how you need to deliver that and what you need to be doing, whether it's a technical drill, a structural drill, a body position, something you can do in the gym or whatever. So you know what you should be doing. You don't quite have the mechanism or the tool from the coaching toolbox, the right span to fit the job. Is that fair enough? Yes.
Right.
100%.
That is the difference between a coach. A coach will give you that. And I'm not reflecting on anybody else's coaching. So what we aim to do here is give you the tools. Now, what will happen is we will probably give you a slightly different mechanism, a slightly different technical focus, and it might mean that you come to a GB session and we focus on something slightly different, and then you'll go back to the diggers team and they do it slightly differently. It's just a different emphasis, and what we'll have to do really is get used to the fact that in this boat we're doing it this way, and this boat we're doing it that way. It's not going to be fundamentally different. There'll be some significant differences, but what we do, we really go hard, literally, on the front end, because to my mind, and I'm Nicky's of the same mind really, the key part, it's all important, but the crucial part is this whole dragon boat business is the catch. And if you haven't got a catch, a proper catch, and what if you can't carry whatever if you can't keep what you catch all the way through the power phase of the stroke, then we're missing some of your power. So you may be a really physical team, but what we're saying is, right, well, Tom, he may be a physically stronger bloke than me, but I need every part of his physicality, every part of his strength through the whole of the power phase. Because if he's going inverted or negative early, then if he's pushing the boat down, or I'm pushing the boat down, what I'm putting on, he's potentially taking off. And if you hear it in black and white like that, that sounds, oh, blimey, what's he saying to me? You're telling me I'm a crap paddler. No, what we're saying is we need to really work on this, because if this is Tom's power, right, and this is my power, then whatever I'm bringing to the boat needs to be optimized. So that's what this is all about. Absolutely, yeah. I'm just wondering, just from what you've told me, just hypothetically, from what you've told me, it would sound to me that you're probably coming in, because there may not be the fuller understanding of how that catch works. Then you may have some of your crew coming in more towards the PowerPoint, more towards the vertical. Would that be right? Have I got the right sort of? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. And this is why I think video is so important. Like you said, from different angles. You know, I love to see videos from the side as well, so you can see your paddle angle.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't. I mean, the point is, when you freeze frame a video, if you do one freeze frame and Paul's there and I'm there, okay. If it happens every time you freeze frame the video, we've got an issue. Everyone misses a catch. Catches a crab every now and again, so we've got to take the whole thing as a round. But I mean, I don't know. I would imagine from what you've told me, then a simple mechanism of taking the digger's stroke from there and moving the whole thing forward might actually give you more power. Do you know what I mean? So the stroke length is probably okay, and it sounds, if it's clean out the back, it sounds like your stroke length is not too long at the back. But it might mean that you come in a little bit behind the catch, or you've lost a bit of the catch and you come in at the back. And I'll just try a simple mechanism. I'll just say, take that same length and move the whole thing forward. And then your coach will come up with a mechanism of doing that, a focus point, a technical drill, or whatever. You see what I mean? So that's the sort of thing we'd be talking about here. But what we don't want you to do is going back to the diggers or wherever and saying, oh yeah, the GB coach told me that. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, it's different. It's the way it is. Yeah. Or, you know, we don't do that. The one I always get, we don't do that at Amethyst or Royal Yacht Club or Dubai Diggers. Okay, no, we don't do that, because this is just a little bit different. That's all. Not better, just different. And that's important as well. Anyway, I've laboured that point a little bit, and thanks to the diggers for allowing me to pick on you as an example, because what I may be completely off beam, but the point is, it's just from what you said to me, that might be the case. But like I say, we'll get some video, but that's where we're going with it, really focusing on where we can maximize, optimize your drive out the stroke. And you might find that it may happen, it does sometimes happen. I've had this in the past where people say to me, no, I don't agree with that, don't agree with that. And then 2 years down the line, they say, oh, Tim, by the way, you know that stuff you used to tell us? It works. Really? Really? Isn't that amazing? If I had this with Cambridge Royals when I first started, I went there and they said, oh, yeah, oh, no, you do that with Amethyst, the team I was with at the time. Yeah, that works for them, blah, blah, blah. 2 years later, started winning races. Said, we do that now and it works. I'm saying, well, it's not have a Christmas cracker. It's not magic. It's just taking a body, trying to think about the way a body works, talking and working with some good quality coaches and seeing what works for your crew, and then implementing that. And if that doesn't work, try something else. But it's an ongoing process. That's it. So enough. And thank you, diggers, lads. Thank you very much. And I'm sure you're great paddlers. I'm sure you're wonderful. But I thought I'd just sort of pick on that just for the. But you know what I mean by that. That's the process we'll be going through. But it's
lovely boys.
Exactly. Right. Okay. Last few bits. You've all seen the. I keep calling it homework. It's not homework. It's a return. It's a return because it goes out and it comes back. It's not a homework. I used to call it homework. what I'm going to do from this point forward is you may have seen it already. It's the same sort of thing. So if you get a chance to get out in the water, as you do that. If you can't do that, get on an ergo, fine. If not, get in the gym or a combination of all of those. But this week I'm asking you to do, it's either called an accumulator or it's called a ladder. And you're building up building blocks. So it's going to be a minute on, a minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, 4 minutes on. Same as if you're on an ergo, same as it's all explained, same as if you're in a single boat. You can also do it as an accumulator piece for dragon boat training. You see what I mean? So it all works, and there's some exercise as well in the gym. So the rationale behind it is the same. What we're looking to do is build up your endurance, strength endurance, and explosive strength as well. Yeah, which we'll talk about shortly in a minute. And it's really important. And sometimes people say, well, this is me in my 20s. I say, what's the point of resting? You rest when you're dead, right? Crap stuff. But you don't realize that when you're talking about heart rate training and conditioning training, the rest is as important as the work interval, because what you're doing is you're training yourself in recovery, you're training your heart, etc., etc. So it really is. And if you're doing a minute on, minute off, if I do like a sprint piece, I'll do a minute sprinting, and then or more often than not, very light paddling. And if I've got it set up on my GPS watch, it just ticks over a minute and then I go again. Yep, that sort of thing. So if you've got any questions about programming watches, ergos, come back to me, but I'll put some stuff on the spreadsheet anyway.
Quick question.
Yes.
Anyway, I was having a look at this earlier on, and obviously if you're on an erg doing the 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, you do 3 rounds of that. But if you're in the gym doing the weights, is it only 2 rounds of those exercises?
Yes. Well, you may have seen it on the spreadsheet. What I've suggested to people is you do 3 rounds, but the first 15 minutes is flexibility.
Oh, right, okay.
So you're doing essentially 13 or 15 minutes of, and I'm suggesting resistance bands, which are particularly good for strength endurance as well. So you do a round of that and then do ladder A and ladder B. So you still do 3 ladders, but I'm trying to encourage people to do more flexibility. I think I spoke about your, equating your shoulders to a Lamborghini, and quite an intricate piece of machinery. Of course, as you ramp up the training, then your shoulders are susceptible to injuries, rotator cuff stuff, that sort of stuff. So the more flexibility and conditioning you can build into your training, it's time well spent. I spend probably 15 minutes a day at least on just resistance bands or flexibility training. And if you do that, you end up looking like me. I'm not sure that's a good idea, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so that's that.
Can I just ask as well?
Oops.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
For the rowing, if we do it on the rowing erg, what kind of effort do you want?
Right, great question. In terms of effort, it's going to be the on piece, the level 4 piece is going to be 85%. So what I'm talking about there, and just to reiterate this, we always talk about 100%. 100% to me is Usain Bolt running 100 meters, 10 seconds worth of effort. So in reality, if you're going full bore of 500 meters, that's what I'm calling 85 to 95%.
Okay.
So that's going to be, so your on effort is level 4, 85%, 90%, that sort of thing. The sort of thing you could sustain for 2 minutes, or 500 meters. And the down interval for this, if it's rest, it's really round about level 2 and below. So probably 40, 50%. But certainly in the don't gun it in the rest interval, because you want the effort for the on interval.
Okay, so it's active recovery, as Nikki would say, rather than actual rest.
You can do rest if you want, but I just do a very light turnover and just helps get the air through the system. So you're oxygenating, really. That's the way I do it. Because if you get you moving the body, moving the muscles, then you're going to pump the blood around the system and you're going to reoxygenate easier. Yeah.
A question on that, is there a target stroke rate you want? Because obviously this stroke rate varies in terms of distance. Are you looking for a certain stroke rate as a target?
Right, well, what I'm looking for you to do, I call it, I don't mean it in a condescending way, I call it intelligent paddling. What I mean is you working out what is optimum for you, what I've found is I try and peg it below 29, because I've sort of worked out ad hoc a little bit that if I'm paddling at 60 strokes a minute, then really the target rate on an ergo is going to be half of that. And also by trial and error myself, I might have mentioned it on this group, just as a little straw poll I did a few weeks ago, just for example, I went out and pulled 30 strokes and did just under 300 meters, pulled 30 strokes, 300 meters at about 29, 30 strokes a minute. Then I did 30 at 45 strokes a minute, which was a crazy rate. And I went 235 meters, and then went just above 30, 31, 32, I went 270. So for me, with the levers I've got, 28, 29, 30. So I'm trying to, my next gauge, if you like, is if I can achieve 28, 29, I'm trying to achieve the same efficiency, the same distance on 27, 28. Because if, like all these things, it's like stroke rate, it's like heart rate. If you peg one metric, then the only way to improve is to become more efficient or have a better technique. You see what I mean? If you have too many metrics, then it's like a shotgun. You know, which one do I change? Yes, Heidi May. You're on mute. You're on mute.
And do you want us to standardize the damper as well? I know on mine, putting it round about 5 gives me 120. So do you want us to all aim for that?
I mean, people say, it depends who you talk to. People say between 6 and 8 is water. You know, 5, I'd say 5 to 8, probably that sort of thing. But it depends on what you're doing. And I'll answer your question by answering the question. Can you practice starts, dragon boat starts on an ergo?
Well, you can practice a start. You can, yeah, I mean, at the beginning of a piece.
So given that starts are more, it's not static strength. Static strength is
explosive. Yeah.
Explosive strength. So looking at explosive strength, so you're maximizing your output and flexibility. What sort of damper setting, if you're practicing starts, what sort of damper setting would you go for?
Got mine on 7.
You're going to say 10 because you want to create.
Yeah, I would put mine on 10 actually.
I mean, if you had a very nice helper, you could maybe pull the first 20 strokes on 10 and then get them and I can move forward and flick it down. You see what I mean? You can get quite smart in the way you do it. If you're just practicing 20 stroke starts, just getting through the idea about what I'm actually doing. I'll talk about strokes. Everyone okay for a minute? If I go for another 10, 15?
Yeah, 5, 10 minutes. I've got
10, yeah. I'll talk about starts next time. But the if you're pulling it, then yeah, you are. If you're just practicing the start, the mentality and the physicality of it, I'll just pull through as hard as possible on a slower stroke rate. So I might go for 25 for the first 5 or 6, and then speed up the stroke rate, but then keep the damper setting. So I'll be thinking about what effect I'm trying to achieve on it. So ideal, I suppose, if you went for trying to replicate a dragon boat stroke, you maybe go for the first few strokes on 10, get the boat out the hole, break the inertia, get the boat moving. And then when you go through your acceleration and consolidation piece, however long that's going to be in your dragon boat start, then you maybe want it on 8. And when you're into the real strength and endurance side of things, the chug, if you like, as they call it in Hong Kong, into your transition, then you're probably around about 6. You see what I mean? So you can actually do a lot of stuff, and you can do the same stuff doing bent over rows. You think about it, I've got a couple of barbells out there. I've got a heavier one that I do for my starts. If I just made a video on that, fancy that. So you're doing a heavier 20, and then I'm skipping over and I'm swinging the kettlebell. So you're going for strength, explosive, and then you're going for strength, endurance.
Do you want to define that for us, Tim? You know, like in this piece, you know, do you want to tell us where you want the damper so that we're all doing the same thing, or do you want us to just play with it?
I would say if I would play with it for a week.
Okay.
Because what I'm going to be doing next week is giving you more specifics. So I want a bit of a sandbox area where you're saying, well, this works for me, this works for me. So you're saying to me, when you're doing your chug, your strength endurance, then position works for you. So for you, I'll be saying, okay, achieving this on 5. So let's change that metric a little bit and see what else changes. You see what I mean? But you're sort of changing one thing at a time. If you're changing everything at the time, then you won't know what you're going to adjust. So think in terms of shooting analogy. Yeah, you're shooting a shot middle of the screen and you've got a burst there. The first thing you've got to do is close the group and then move the group onto the target. But if you've got too many metrics, then if I change that, that might change. You're not quite sure what you're doing. But we're going to be working this into the Dragon Boat training as well. So it will become more familiar as you go along. And you're just saying, well, okay, I see how it works there, and I'll just transpose that into my own training. You may do this already. Because you think about it, if you work with weights, you're going to sort of progress the weights in terms of weight and decrease the reps. So there's a set format that you use. It's just really using the same sort of thinking and methodology from something you do know into something you're less familiar with working it. Yeah, that's all. That's all.
There's also on you got a note on the Heidi on the concept 2. You also create your own resistance. So even if you're on damper 6, the harder you pull, the more resistance you create on the next stroke.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes people put it on 10 and the technique's terrible and it's the worst thing you can do. You better start in on a lower and really get in the drive and then playing about with it.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, absolutely. And it's, I say, I'm not claiming to be an expert on it, but I am thinking we need to be sharing more information about. So if Paul's saying that, and that's Paul, that works for me, that works for Paul. That's a really bit of a nugget to share. Okay. That
came from the British indoor rowing champion that we trained with. So,
well, okay. There's a font of great knowledge then. Okay. I'll talk a bit more about start because you're in a different place to Hong Kong and UK. I'll talk a bit more in detail about start. So go on for an hour. So let's just answer the question first. Then. So question 1, just to finish. Do we have a flexibility protocol in GB Senior A?
Yes.
Yes, it's called FAME. It's resistance. Oh, yeah. You heard me. Resistance band, flexibility, agility, mobility, energy. You've got to build. You don't need a protocol. We need to be as flexible as we can be. Bearing in mind that with all of us, unfortunately, even the youngest amongst you, we're less flexible than we were when we were 16. So we need to build flexibility into our training. And that's why, for example, in that gym bit, the first 15 minutes is flexibility. If you want to know about flexibility, have a look at the YouTube channel. There are loads of stuff that I've done, other people have done on resistance bands, lower weight, higher reps, jumping over barbells, this sort of stuff. Burpees, fantastic. New one, haymaker, have a look at that. All sorts of things. And I'll be loading loads of flexibility stuff because the more flexible you are in the body and in the mind, the better we'll be. I don't need to write it into a protocol. That's a key part of the fabric of what we're doing. That's that. And the second part, what was the other question? What's the point? What's the point of doing all this strength and conditioning stuff? Why don't we just train you in a Dragon Boat and you just pump it out there? What do you think? Somebody give me an answer.
We're training more specific muscles. So we're gaining a better... So the muscles that connect your upper back with your lower back, we're training that little muscle in the middle, which actually helps the whole thing work together better. That's why we train in the gym specific targets.
Yeah, and exactly. And in other words, but exactly the same. The hierarchy, if you like, if you can get in a boat, get in a Dragon Boat. If you can't get in Dragon Boat, the next one down is a single boat. The next one down is an ergo. The next one down is strength and conditioning. However, we are individual athletes in a close-knit team. So we could get in a boat and feel really good. So Paul and Tom and James are there and Heidi May are there and they're pulling away and I'm thinking, fantastic, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really strong. And they're doing all the work. So I need to do some measure of what, get understanding of what my output is myself. And the only way I can do that is in a single boat or in the gym specifically, or on the ergo. But the other thing is, I'll just reach back to Sun Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher and warrior. He will conquer, he, as in he or she will conquer, who masters the art of variation. Okay, so the more varied we are, different ways of looking at the same thing, different ways of testing ourselves, the better we'll be. So if we do dragon boat, dragon boat, dragon boat, and dragon boat, fine, but that's not necessarily going to make us the best dragon boat paddler. We've got to look at a variety of methods, right, to keep it interesting as well. Yeah. So that's why we have different methods of arriving at the same thing. But of course, as time goes on, we need to be spending lots of time in dragon boats, but don't neglect the supporting stuff as well. Heidi May, yes.
Yeah, I think what I've learned as well over kind of my journey on a dragon boat is the strength and conditioning for me, and I've done it, you know, strength and conditioning with a PT, and I've also done it in a kind of rehab way with a kinesiologist, is about really targeting those stabilizing muscles. Particularly when I first started, I had loads of problems with my shoulders, and it's only when I started the band work and like really specific rotator cuff work that I've been kind of injury free. And I think it's really easy to neglect that side of things, and you know, to go into, you know, the big compound movements and all the rest of it without really focusing on the stabilizers. I know, you know, with our team, in our warm-up, we always do the kind of rotator cuff work just to activate that muscle so that it's primed, and then the bigger muscles can kind of come in. So I think that's really important. Yeah. And I mean, and for me, it's just about, you know, we're doing something that's really intense. We're, you know, we're an older bunch of people, and we're taking our bodies to hell and back. And I think the strength and conditioning component is really important for injury prevention as well.
I've been using resistance bands for 3 years now, probably. And largely, I've been injury free, but because, yeah, if you're doing heavier lifts, then you've got to do all the precursor work as well, and that's just getting the muscles, ligaments, tendons, all the connective tissue sorted out in preparation as well. And it's particularly important for those, not so much yourselves, who aren't paddling in the UK, who've maybe had a year off paddling, and what they're going to do, I know what they're going to do. They're going to jump into a dragon boat and get injured straight away. So I'm banging on again about, right, get yourself conditioned, get yourself sorted out, think about this, think on purpose. That's what.
And I think as well, in terms of, you know, building muscle, you know, to create power, we need a certain level of muscle mass. Yeah. And what we do in the dragon boat isn't necessarily the right kind of exercise to build that muscle mass. So I think that's, again, the benefit of a strength training program, particularly if you look at it over time, is in you can target different phases of the program, you know, to be building the strength component and then the kind of power, you know, getting your endurance in earlier on. And I think, you know, that's really useful, and looking at the time under tension that the muscles at.
Absolutely.
Is all going to build the muscle so that when we get into the boat, we've then got the muscle there to create the power to move us forward.
Yeah. So things like 1 rep maximum, that's important, but it's, I mean, I'll talk about it next week, but it's less important as you go down the line, but that's like foundational work as well. More about that later. Right. I've talked enough. So Zip, Joanne, any final points? Quick roundup.
Hello, Tim. I had a really good learning from week 4, in that I very rarely get on the rowing machine and keep my stroke rate low. I've historically got on it and just gone hell for leather and not really thought about the strokes per minute. So the last exercise we did, I actually had to do it twice because I was really crap the first time because I just couldn't. I had to work out how to generate power with a really low stroke rate. So that's my thing that I learned last week, in that was how to generate power with a low stroke rate, and my second go at it was better than my first. So
we could write a big thesis and you could read it, but you have to do it, don't you? You have to do it to see how it plays.
So that was really good. That was really good because the first try was rubbish and the second was better. So I learned something from that.
Excellent. Nikki, thank you.
No, I don't have much to say. I'm just watching, learning, observing, and just looking forward to going on this journey with these people. So pretty much that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Heidi May.
I think I've said enough. No, I think it's great. I love paddling with the team. I love what we're doing. I think, you know, we're really coming together. I'm really looking forward to, you know, being videoed and getting, you know, one-on-one feedback as to what, you know, where I can make improvements. And I think we're all ready for that stage and to kind of really blend the boat. So no, it's great.
We've been priming you. James.
No, I mean, yesterday was my first training session for a couple of weeks where I actually felt like I'd done something half decent. So I'm looking forward to hopefully starting again. Well, no, not hopefully, starting this next week, really. Because I had a cold, but that's over with now.
But it's important to be self-critical, but not beat yourself up. You see what I mean? So that's important as well, because everyone has good days and bad days. And sometimes I go out on the water and I think, oh, that was a load of rubbish, come back tomorrow. Fine. It happens, as long as you don't do that too often. But you see what I mean? But you've got to accept, you've got to use the feedback loop as an encouraging and productive thing as well, accepting that everyone has bad days. So that's just the way it is, yeah? Yeah?
All good.
No worries. Paul Christie, sorry. Michelle's down there.
All good from my side, enjoying it. Enjoying the coaching, enjoying the gym work.
Good, fantastic.
Yeah,
Paul.
Yeah, well, I always say quite a lot. Well, I can't help myself. You know, we're self-critical. Me and Christine, we watch the videos over and over and over again. We talk about it. We just want to try and improve. It's not easy, but you just got to keep driving forward to just to get those little tweaks. You know, it's what is it? Improve 1% a day. It's amazing how much it adds up over time. And
you always, when you see your top athlete, your top sports person, you always know about their success, but you never hear about the hours, weeks, months, years failing. Yeah. So that's part of you have to fail in order to succeed. So that's just the way it goes. Thank you, Tom.
Just a couple of quickies. I really enjoyed the 10K yesterday. I thought it was really good, like a team bond as much as everything else. And really interesting when I looked at the speeds, looking back, how we really started to gel at the end. And the speeds got faster and faster, even though we were absolutely buggered. Looking forward to the videoing. The only input on that I'd say is it's also important to get videoed when we don't know we're being videoed. Because everyone can up the game when you know there's a boat there and a video on you, but you almost want to know when you're in your normal stroke as well. Does that make sense?
You always have the nice photo shot, but yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll
you know you're being videoed, you're going to rotate till you're literally creaking and you're going to straighten that top arm, or at least you think you are. Whereas if you don't know you're being filmed, then you're more likely to see your weak
bits. Like I say, I've already got some video of you anyway, so there. Yeah. Okay, Abby.
All good for me. I missed a couple of sessions this week because I've got a cough. It's not COVID. I've done the test, but the problem is anytime you cough, people automatically assume it's COVID. So I missed the 10K yesterday, which was a bit gutted about, but I think like Joe mentioned, I did the return this morning and did the 10 by 30 strokes, and same thing. I found the slower I went, the more power I got and the more distance I got in. So that was a good learning. I think I'm looking forward to the videos as well and just getting some one-on-one feedback. I think we've seen some photographs from Nikki last week, and she's always saying about a straight arm. And in my head, it's a straight arm, but when you look at the picture, it's not a straight arm. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, so when I first started dragon boating, I went to get fit, and now it's all about getting fit for the dragon boat. So yeah, that transition, that change, yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Bizarre how it happens, how it takes over things. Oh, this is a full-time job. Anyway, Jenny, thank you.
Yeah, no, all good for me. I missed this week, so I can't do it Tuesday, so I missed the 10K, and I had a headache on Sunday, so I missed our Saturday, so I missed that. So looking forward to getting back in the boat with everybody on Saturday, hopefully.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, thank you, Rachel and Kat. No Kat now.
No, all is good for me. I'm not training at the moment with the COVID numbers being so high. I've got to keep myself safe for my teaching, because if I got to isolate for 10 days, I can't work. So I'm missing the boat hugely, but I am keeping up training on the other side.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you. Deborah, hello.
Hello. Yeah, there's lots of things. I suppose we were talking about the time in the water, and I'm trying to apply that to the erg. The long stroke and the quick return. And I also think the strength and conditioning is a journey, one that shouldn't be rushed and pushed with too much weight. For whatever reason, I think that's a definite journey. And yeah, you need to be strong to get on the boat. And that supports what you do on the boat. Yeah. And flexibility, I'm all into flexibility. I've been doing yoga for a long time, and it's a strength yoga. It's not just, lying around on the floor. So I do believe in flexibility, keeping you strong as well.
Right, that sounds like a conversation we need to have about strength yoga, because I know a bit about yoga. I don't know about strength yoga. Great. And last but not least, Michelle.
Nothing more to add from me.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for that input on the drama cock side of things. Okay, so you've all seen the stuff. Just last point for me, absolute last point. You've all seen the stuff about the 27th, the challenge day. Does that work for everybody?
Depends what time.
Well, I'm happy to go 6 in the morning here, which would be 10 in the morning there. Does that work? Or any day over that weekend? So give us a
I mean, Barracudas will be training Friday morning. By anything, I've got a Zoom birthday party for my mum's 70th in the evening on one of those days. So that's just, as long as it's earlier in the day, but not too early for coaching or for training.
I can't do Saturday mornings as I work.
Right. Okay.
Tim,
Well,
should we see what time works best for people? We'll put it out on our WhatsApp group and then get back to you.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah, fine. That all works for me both those days. So whatever suits you. Because you're 4 hours in front of me, then really any time works, but don't make it 4 in the morning.
Why not?
Okay, and apart from that, optional, completely optional. If you want me to do a session, just a support session on any Saturday at 10 in the morning your time, just tell me and I'll do it. Yeah. So anybody up for that on this Saturday?
I'll do this Saturday.
One. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll be the same link. I'm happy to talk to one person or 101. It doesn't matter because I'm doing it anyway. So if we say this Saturday, if you're available, come and join us 10 o'clock your time. I'll be there and we'll just run through the exercises and a bit of flexibility stuff as well. Yeah. So we'll do that to start with. We'll pretty much run through that sort of stuff. So fine. Okay. All done. Okay. It's been a pleasure. Sorry I kept you longer than I thought, but you're a talkative bunch. Right. So am I. See you later. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and Heidi May, I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye.